The Temple of the Panther Queen. The explorers stood at the edge of the jungle. This was the last charted location on any map of any explorer that had come before them. No humans had ever traveled there. They were going into the lands of animals, wilderness, and perhaps treasure. "Are you ready?" asked the explorer with the blue backpack. "Yes," replied the explorer with the red backpack. "Did you do a final check on all of our supplies?" "Yes, everything is accounted for." In their backpacks, they carried some food, canteens filled with water, climbing shoes, rope, flashlights, their notepads, a compass, and a map sketchbook. "Are you ready to explore the unknown jungle?" "I'm ready for adventure. Let's do it." The explorers stepped into the jungle. As they walked, they pushed aside big leaves and vines and climbed their way through big tree roots. The trees stood tall overhead. "Tell me again about the legend," said the explorer with the red backpack. The explorer with the blue backpack began to tell the tale. Legends of this jungle tell the story of the Panther Queen, who lived deep within the jungle. One year, the Panther Queen decided to travel and learn about other lands. During her travels, she came to the sea, a place of water and sand and sky. It was completely different from her home of plants and earth and trees. She stood on the beach, the gray sky above her and the wind whipping around her, watching the waves rising and crashing in a powerful song. Then the sun came out, and all went still. From the sea rose the sea god, the sunlight glinting on his scales. He met the Panther Queen on the beach. They spoke for a while and learned new things from each other. After their meeting, the sea god gave the Panther Queen a necklace of sea stones. The sea stones were rare gems that came from the very depths of the ocean. When she returned to the jungle, the Panther Queen brought the necklace back with her. Something happened then to the stones. The stones were far away from the sea, and the energy of the jungle mixed into the stones, so the necklace took on a special quality. It was part ocean and part jungle, and the only one of its kind to exist in the whole entire world. The Panther Queen treasured the necklace and placed it in her temple to keep it safe. No one has ever found the necklace, but either it is because they will not travel into the jungle to find the temple, or they do not believe it exists. But we do. Yes, we do. And I can't wait to see what we find, whatever it might be. The ground the explorers were walking on started turning mushy. It was soft and squished under their feet. They started being more careful about where they stepped. They pushed back some tall grasses and low-hanging leaves. Beyond them was a swamp. They could see it stretch for miles on either side of them. The explorers could not tell if the water in front of them was deep or shallow. There were clumps of different plants making little islands throughout the swamp. Trees grew out of the swamp, the bottoms of their trunks hidden beneath the surface of the water. The explorers decided they would try to hop from island to island or wade through the shallow parts of the swamp to get to the other side. Just as they were about to step into the swamp, they saw something in the water and froze. It looked like a moss-covered log, but then it moved. It was not a log, but an alligator. One of the explorers pointed. There was another one. They looked more closely. Another, then another, and another. The swamp was filled with alligators. There was no way they were going to get through the swamp, not with all the hungry alligators there. What could they do? They had to keep going in this direction. The swamp stood between them and the legendary location of the temple. The explorers thought. They looked up at the trees. Suddenly, they had an idea. Maybe they could travel from tree to tree high above the swamp. They took off their backpacks and pulled out their climbing shoes and rope. They tied up their climbing shoes, situated their packs, and began to scale a tree near the edge of the swamp. When the explorers reached a good height, they walked across the branches. Then, using vines and sometimes the rope, they began to swing from tree to tree, making their way across the swamp through the treetops. The alligators followed them in the swamp below, sometimes opening their big mouths, hoping the explorers would slip on a branch and fall straight into their waiting bellies. The explorers had to be very careful. One wrong step, and they would be alligator breakfast. One tree, and then another, and soon the explorers made it to the other side of the swamp. They breathed a sigh of relief. They were through. Next, the explorers had to climb over a mountain that rested in the middle of the jungle. The jungle grew up on all sides of it. The roots that the explorers had to climb around slowly turned into boulders underfoot that they crawled up and over. The land was always going upwards. The trees gave way to small bushes and rocks. The explorers stood on a mountain cliff and overlooked the jungle canopy. The green treetops stretched as far as they could see, with mist from the humidity passing slowly through the trees. They continued upward on their journey to a cleft in a peak that would take them down the other side of the mountain. As they reached the cleft, a massive brown shape dropped down from the rocks and blocked their path. It stood to full height, and they got a good look at it. It was a huge gorilla with a furrowed brow, a muscled body, and menacing fists. In a deep voice it said, "Who dares intrude upon my mountain top?" A burst of monkey calls echoed the question, screeches and hollers and whoopings all around them. The explorers had walked right into a monkey den. They were trapped. They answered the gorilla's question. They explained who they were and that they were on their way to the Panther Queen's temple. The gorilla laughed at them, and all the other monkeys did too, their laughter reverberating off the walls of the mountain. But the explorers gave each other a look and then asked, "So the temple is real?" "Of course the temple is real," said the gorilla. "You'll never make it there, though." The legends were true. The temple was real. "We've made it this far, haven't we?" said the explorer with the blue backpack. Then the gorilla grinned. "So you have. You even made it past the alligators, I see." It scratched its big, hairy chin. "Tell you what," said the gorilla. "If you can guess my riddle, I will let you pass to the other side of the mountain. Get it wrong, and I'll carry you back down the mountain and feed you to the alligators." Uh-oh, the explorers thought. This was serious. They hoped they would be able to guess the riddle correctly. "The riddle is this. I sleep by day and fly at night, but I have no feathers to aid my flight. What am I?" The explorers started to think. An owl? No, it sleeps by day, but it has feathers. All flying birds have feathers, so it can't be a bird. A flying squirrel? They have no feathers. No, but they're awake during the day. What flies at night that has no feathers? The explorer with the red backpack snapped their fingers. "Remember that cave that we passed on the way up the mountain?" The explorer with the blue backpack nodded. "It reminded me of something. What lives in caves that sleeps during the day and flies out at night?" "That's it," said the explorer with the blue backpack. "Do you have your answer?" asked the gorilla. "Yes," the explorer said. "What sleeps by day and flies by night, but has no feathers to aid its flight. It's a bat." "You guessed correctly," said the gorilla. The monkeys roared into a cheer. "It is a bat. You may pass down to the other side of the mountain. But I would be careful over there. The dangers become greater the further you go into the jungle." The explorers nodded to the gorilla, passed through the cleft in the peak, and began their trek down the other side of the mountain. At the bottom of the mountain, they entered a part of the jungle where the light was very low. On the ground grew bunches of wide white flowers. The flowers glowed in the dim light. Specks of yellow-white pollen drifted through the air. While the flowers were pretty and gave off a little bit of glowing light, it was very hard to see. The explorers pulled out their flashlights and used the light to guide their way. As they were walking, they began to yawn. It had been a long journey already, and they had not stopped very often. A soft shh, shh sound came from the jungle all around them. Their eyes began to droop. They rubbed their eyes. Soon their steps were dragging. One of the explorers yawned. "I feel so sleepy. Maybe we should take a break." The other explorer was already sinking to their knees to sit down. "A break would be nice." And before they could say anything else, both explorers were curled up on the jungle floor, flashlights in hand, asleep between 2 tree roots and a pocket of white flowers. Little did they know that they were following a path that other animals avoided. The flowers were sleepy flowers, and this was the hunting ground of a great beast. The pollen would lull the animals into a deep sleep. Then the predator would come hunting. Shh, shh, came the noise from the jungle, now closer. 2 yellow slits appeared in the gloom. 2 eyes on a massive hooded head that almost floated above the jungle floor. A forked tongue flicked out from its mouth. A pattern of blue and green scales glinted in the dark. The monster snake had found its prey. It began making a circle around the 2 sleeping explorers, sliding its long body along the path. It opened its mouth wide, its long needle-like fangs dripping with saliva. The snake moved to swallow up the 2 unaware explorers. Then, a moment of luck. One of the explorers turned in their sleep just at that very moment. The flashlight was still in their hands. The bright beam of light went right into the snake's eyes. It reared back and hissed. It was momentarily blinded. It writhed around, disoriented by the unexpected light. The movement shook the 2 explorers out of their slumber just enough to realize what was happening. "Run!" they shouted. Feeling foggy, but as quickly as they could, they stumbled over the big coils of the snake and ran through the jungle, tripping over vines and rocks as they ran. At one point, they tripped and fell into a pile of the white flowers. The pollen sprung up all around them, and they sneezed. Their eyes began closing again. That's when they realized the flowers were making them sleepy. They heard an angry hiss behind them and a shh, shh movement on the ground. The snake had recovered, and it was coming after them. "Quick!" The explorers took out their handkerchiefs and canteens. After pouring water onto their handkerchiefs, they put them to their faces to try to prevent breathing in any more pollen. This helped, and soon they were more alert and able to run much faster through the jungle. They made it to the edge of a rushing river. It looked like the jungle started opening up on the other side, and there were a lot less of the white flowers there. The giant snake was close behind them. They would have to find a way to cross. There, stones were peeking out of the water, enough to get them across to the other side. They were going to get wet, but it was either that or being eaten. The explorers leapt from rock to rock, getting splashed by the current. One wrong step, and they would fall into the river and be swept far downstream. The snake appeared at the edge of the bank. It hissed at them. One more jump, and they fell onto the bank on the other side. The explorers spun around to look at the snake. It slid this way and that and looked darkly at the river. The snake was angry. It would not be able to cross the river, and its dinner had gotten away. The explorers took a couple of deep breaths as they watched the snake slither back into the gloom of the white flower jungle. That was too close. If they hadn't woken up, they would have gone right into the snake's belly. They helped each other up and continued through the jungle. They felt that they were close now. The jungle trees started separating and becoming fewer and fewer. Then, the jungle opened up into a clearing of tall grass and open sky. The explorers looked up. It was nighttime, and the stars shone brightly in a circle of sky above the clearing. On the other side of the clearing, they saw a massive shape carved out of stone. The temple of the Panther Queen. They had found it. The explorers started walking through the tall grass in the clearing. When they were getting close to the entrance of the temple, they felt the hair on the back of their arms stand up. They looked around. There were eyes in the trees. Not just one set of eyes, but many glowing eyes in the trees under the canopy. One of the sets of eyes moved. A panther. It leapt down from the tree and onto the ground, eyes fixed on them. It started to move towards the temple. Another panther, and then another leapt from the trees until all of them were in the clearing, crouched and stalking towards the explorers. Then they bared their teeth and started to run. The explorers sprinted to the temple door. They pushed hard on the great stone door, forcing it open, and squeezed inside the opening just as the panthers made it to the temple. The explorers slammed the door shut. They hoped that the panthers couldn't get inside another way. The explorers turned on their flashlights and walked down a long hallway that led to a flight of stairs. They walked up 1, 2, 3 flights of stairs. On the third level of the temple was a large open space. In the middle of the room was a patch of moonlight that spilled down through an opening in the roof. There, resting on a pedestal and sparkling in the moonlight, was the Panther Queen's necklace. The explorers had found it. They walked up to the necklace. It was more beautiful than they had imagined. The blue stones would sometimes shine green. They could hear the crashing waves on the beach underneath the animal sounds of the jungle. It was an incredible treasure. Suddenly, lights flared around them. Torches burned a yellow-blue fire. Thieves! The explorers looked around to see where the voice was coming from. Behind the necklace, a pale, shimmering figure appeared. It was see-through. A ghost. But not just any ghost. The ghost of the Panther Queen. She towered over them. "Thieves in my temple! You dare to steal my necklace?" The explorers trembled. They were too afraid to speak. The ghost of the Panther Queen bared her teeth. "We were not going to sell it," said the first explorer. "We weren't even going to take it," said the second. "Lies," hissed the ghost of the Panther Queen. "No, it's true. We just wanted to see if it existed. We liked your story about how you traveled and met the sea god. We just wanted to come on an adventure and see if your story was true." The ghost of the Panther Queen softened. "My story is true," she said. "I traveled far to see other lands of this world. Out of all the lands I saw, the sea was my favorite. So much beauty and power, so much mystery and magic beneath the waves. If my home was not the jungle, perhaps I would have chosen to live by the ocean." "Did you and the sea god ever get to meet again?" the explorers asked her. "No," she said sadly. "The sea god could not leave the sea and could not visit me so deep in the jungle lands. This necklace is very special. It reminds me of my friend and of my travels. Since you like my story, I shall tell you of my adventures. The sea god even took me under the water to the sea kingdom." "He did?" The explorers couldn't believe it. The explorer sat down on the floor. In the torchlight, the ghost of the Panther Queen told them about her adventures, what happened when she left the jungle, what lands she visited, and what the sea kingdom was like. The explorers listened to every word. When she finished her tale, they thanked the ghost of the Panther Queen for sharing her story. She looked at the explorers thoughtfully. "Do you think others might like to hear my tale?" "Oh, yes," said the explorers. "People often do not believe in stories that are told as legends, but we will share your story when we return home. We will add it to the legend of the necklace." "If you promise to take care of my necklace," said the ghost of the Panther Queen, "I will give you permission to borrow it. You may bring it with you and show it as you tell my story." The explorer stood up and bowed, showing respect and honor to the ghost of the Panther Queen. They promised they would take good care of her necklace and use it to share her story. They pulled out their notebooks and asked the ghost of the Panther Queen to tell her story again, including all the details, and they wrote down her story so it could be printed and displayed with the necklace. When the explorers returned home, they met with their friend, the museum curator, who ran the museum in their home city. The explorers often worked with the museum curator to share artifacts and treasures from legends with the public. The museum curator set up a display in the museum for the necklace. She included the Panther Queen story and a small display that showed the explorers' journey to the temple. The people visiting the museum loved hearing the Panther Queen story and seeing the beautiful necklace. One day, the explorers would go back to the jungle and return the necklace to the temple. Before that, they had many other adventures to plan. They pulled out their maps and began looking for their next adventure. The end.